Star rookie tight end Oronde Gadsden II's injury suffered in the last game is not as serious as we thought, and this is great news because the Chargers offense desperately needs him out there.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Droegemeier, and we've been covering the Chargers now for 10 seasons. This is our 8th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day as the #1 sports podcast network out there. Thank you to the everydayers, as always, for making us your first listen. To make sure you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. David, what do we got today?
Daniel, when Aronde Gadsden II left the game, I know all of our hearts sank a little bit because the injury news has been so bad for the Chargers, but fortunately, they got some good news on that front, and we're going to bring it to you, of course. And also, can the Chargers make it to the playoffs with a healthy defense and this current offensive line? I don't know about the offensive line, but the defense definitely gives you cause for some hope.
It definitely gives you hope, and I think with how this season has gone from an injury standpoint, hope is as much as you can ask for right now. But today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. David, we were cautiously optimistic after the Chargers' big win on Sunday Night Football against the Steelers that we could be seeing Oronde Gadsden II back pretty soon, or at least that maybe it wouldn't be a season-ending injury, which with other guys that we've seen, Omarion Hampton getting tripped, Joe Alt spraining his ankle for the second time, it's hard to have hope, right, when it seems like all of these guys have just had to miss major time, and it doesn't seem like that will be the case for Oronde Gadsden II. And Jim Harbaugh wouldn't really open up on it. He just said that there was soreness after he banged knees with the Steelers defender, but that they would know more on Wednesday. But fortunately for us, Adam Schefter kind of spilled the beans a little bit, because he ended up saying that Chargers tight end Oronde Gadsden's MRI on Monday revealed a quad bruise that now will have him, per a source, day to day. David, we were wondering if he would be back, or have to even have a trip on injured reserve. And it looks like, as of right now, he's not even going to be rolled out for this week.
Which is fantastic news. Obviously, when there's any injuries that have to do with the knee area, you're going to hold your breath a little bit, just because those injuries can be, season ending. And so, obviously you just sit there and you hope for the best. And I think, honestly, this is the best possible outcome that could have came out of this situation, with him just, basically having a thigh bruise. Just going to, probably get some ice, get some treatment on it, and, he should be good to go. So this is fantastic because, although you didn't have the greatest game, had a couple of drop issues in the last game, but before that, 4 games of 65 plus yards receiving and 5 catches. I mean, he was heavily involved in the game plan, quickly becoming a security blanket for Justin Herbert and a guy that he's actively looking for. And also his presence has also made the offense more diverse, because you can't just key in on Ladd. You can't just look at Keenan Allen. You have to worry about all of those guys and Aronde Gadsden over the middle.
Well, I think the thing is that he really brings to the table from that standpoint is he lets you not have to just kind of spread things out and lean more into those big formations where you have 1 or 2 tight ends on the field, when you have him out there and he's going to be a mismatch, and they might have to, try to cover it with base, defensive schematics. Yeah. So I think that's one of the kind of cheat codes that they have with Oronde Gadsden. But I think the other part of it is if you want to see how important he is to the offense, look how much they were going to him in that game, kind of knowing what they were dealing with. He was the main target for that first half, and it didn't work out for them, right? He had a rough game, but you survived that rough game, and this was always going to come with, the rookie growing pains that any kind of rookie is going to face in these situations.
Of course.
Let alone one that's been on, a historic pace through over the last month and a half. I mean, to your point, those 4 games, according to @KyleBorg on Twitter, Gadsden's 4-game stretch before the last game was the most ever by any rookie tight end, even more than Brock Bowers last year, who was like the leading receiver at the tight end position. Never had a 4-game stretch. like the one we saw from Oronde Gadsden. And we could have easily seen him have a much bigger game, obviously, if he cashed in on some of those chances that he had. But this is huge. I mean, to have someone back, to get good injury news, to have someone leave a game but be able to potentially come back the next game, gigantic. And I think that'll be kind of the biggest question that we have this week is just like, do the Chargers, play him in this game? Do they get super cautious because of the bye week next week? I think that's going to be kind of something that lingers over this entire week as the Chargers potentially have these injury reports come out, and we wonder, okay, do they not want to risk it with the bye week coming up? But that isn't the only good injury news, David, because we didn't get to talk about something that happened late last week because when we recorded the show, but Omarion Hampton was seen at Chargers practice working off to the side, according to Daniel Popper. And man, with all of the hardships that the Chargers have faced this year, we know they're not getting their tackles back, but getting more pieces offensively back, potentially having Oronde and Omarion Hampton after the bye week together, because I still think it will be after the bye week for Omarion. They haven't activated his 21-day window yet. But I will say, man, it feels like, we couldn't ask for much better than this.
It's great news. It's fantastic to see him out of the boot and being able to move around, being active, working off to the side with trainers. This just means that ramp up period has started to begin. And so that the Chargers really could use his home run ability, his ability to find the smallest creases and hit it like a freight train, full speed. The guy's dangerous. He's physical. He's a great weapon, and the Chargers need all the weapons that they possibly can get. And I think hats off to Kimani Vidal. He's been mostly good. I mean, a couple of games where he hasn't been as involved, but for the most part, he has outperformed what anybody thought he was capable of, especially after his rookie season where it started off in the best way possible with a touchdown on his very first touch. But after that, things were a little bit inconsistent. And I think this year he has a book of business that he's put out there that he should be very proud of. And I think has also earned him the, ability to continue to stay in this offense, even when Omarion comes back.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, going back to Omarion, I think the big thing for him, I think that it's kind of overlooked potentially, is him potentially being able to come back after the bye week very rested, right? And having 5-6 games of less touches, less wear and tear on the body. Obviously, he's recovering from an ankle injury, but that's, 100, 150 touches less than he would have, especially getting towards the end of the season, where a lot of rookies can hit that rookie wall. So maybe not the worst thing in the world, but definitely is what spurred this buy or sell, because it is buy or sell Tuesday, getting into the biggest Charger storylines and overreactions from We Are the Storm, who says buy or sell, Kimani Vidal will still start at running back even when Omarion Hampton makes his return from IR. David, you said he should be part of the offense even when he comes back, Omarion Hampton, that is. Do you think Kimani will still start when Hampton is back?
And now, if we're talking about the definition of start being he's going to have more touches than Omarion, I think maybe at first that you could see that just as they, get Omarion back into the game plan and they get him, back to, taking hits and being, doing the physical aspects of the game. I could see that. But long term, absolutely not. Omarion Hampton was drafted in the first round. He is a huge part of this offense. It was a big part before he got hurt. He's going to go right back into that because, he's the most explosive player in that running back room, period.
Yeah, I'm going to sell it. I think the definition of start would be like, hey, are you the first guy out there getting the first touch when that first handoff happens? But I do think it is more about who gets the most touches as far as, who would be considered that starter at this point. But I do think, yeah, I mean, it's hard to buy it. I think the thing is Kimani Vidal has put up over 100 yards total in 3 of his 5 games since he started. Yeah, the other 2 games have been stinkers, but we also have seen kind of the blocking that he has struggled behind in those bad games, and so did Omarion Hampton when he was out there. I mean, they've been decently equal as far as rushers. He has made the most of this opportunity. I think he has shown he can be the long-term kind of backup to Omarion Hampton. I don't think he's going to start, though. I do think, to your point, Omarion is the most explosive guy that they have. This is the big thing to me. Omarion Hampton in the quick passing game and his receiving ability is I think is going to be what kind of sets him apart there, because he was really heating up in that regard. I mean, he had 5 plus catches and 122 total receiving yards in the 3 games prior to his injury. Kimani Vidal has 9 catches for 52 yards in the 5 games since he's been filling in for him. So Omarion Hampton, a much bigger threat in the passing game, and that was something I think this offense has missed without him, and something they could get back to using more when he gets back. But we still have more to get into, including, I think, a big question that's over everyone's head. Yes, the Chargers could make the playoffs, but can they actually stop the narrative that Justin Herbert can win there with the offensive line that they have right now? We're getting into all that more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. If you're a business owner, here's the truth. SaaS promised to make work easier, but now the average company is buried by hundreds of apps that slow down your teams and simply don't work together. That's not SaaS, that's sad. Software as a disservice. That's why you need Rippling. Rippling is the unified platform for global HR, payroll, IT, and finance all in one place. They've helped millions of businesses replace a mess of disconnected tools with one system designed to give leaders clarity, speed, and control. By uniting your employees, teams, and departments in one system, Rippling removes the bottlenecks, busy work, and silos your software that you've created. Everything from onboarding to payroll to IT access runs automatically and perfectly in sync. Whether you want to run your entire HR, IT, and finance operations as one, or just fill the gaps in your software stack, Rippling can do it all. Right now, you can get 6 months free when you go to rippling.com/LockedOnNFL. Learn more at rippling.com/LockedOnNFL. That's rippling.com/LockedOnNFL for 6 months free. Terms and conditions apply. I also need to tell you guys about FanDuel, which is the only place that I can bet when I'm in states that allow me to. And the NBA right now is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. I know that I'm always looking for something to fill in the non-football days of the week, and I've turned to basketball. I am a Laker fan, and that's been a lot of fun. They've been very good, but it's not the same, right? Basketball is not football, but one thing that gets it a little bit closer is having a little action on the game. So even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. I love getting my friends together, coming up with big parlays, long shots to win big. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's the one making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, David, well, we do have more buy or sells to get into because it is Tuesday, getting into the biggest Charger storylines and overreactions. And we thank you guys for making us your first listen, as always. Let's get into more of the everydayers buy or sells here, David. And I think we have a really good one here that's very pertinent from the Federation, who says, buy or sell, Chargers can win at least one playoff game with this offensive line and a healthy defense. We'll talk more about the defense later on, David, but I do want to focus on the offensive line because I do think that this is really the biggest thing that would give you a lot of pause. Like, I think the defense, you feel like, would give you a chance there. The biggest question to me would be, can the offensive line give the Chargers a chance to win? Do you think even with knowing who's not coming back, they can get one done with this group?
I think with the offensive line, it is what it is at this point in time. I mean, we know who they are. They kind of what they've shown us to be. It's really about, can the Chargers utilize the weapons to get them to overcome the deficiency of the offensive line, in my opinion. I think what last year in the playoffs made very clear is that your margin for error is very little, and your deficiencies are going to get magnified, and they're going to try to exploit them as much as possible. You're going into this in every single game at a disadvantage without your top tackles. It is what it is. That's just exactly what you have to try to figure out, how to overcome that. Last year, you had issues with the offensive line, and you only had one guy that was able to show up offensively, and that was Ladd McConkey. At least one thing you have going for you right now is that it's not just Ladd McConkey. It's Ladd, it's Keenan Allen, it's Oronde Gadsden II, it's an improved Quentin Johnston, right? I think you have a lot more weapons to be able to answer some of those deficiencies, or at least have solutions for those problems. With that being said, I feel like they do have enough to be able to win a playoff game with the way this offense is currently constructed?
I think it's really hard to give a definitive buy or sell on this, not knowing who the opponent is. I mean, I think it's very matchup dependent for me, depending on who they would play and what that matchup looks like for what, they'd be able to do. Like, I'm buying that it could happen. Like, they could have beat the Jaguars and Justin Herbert made it the first time. They could have beat the Texans had they not kind of totally imploded and he totally implode, right? When they gave him even moderately better protection in that game. I think the hard thing is kind of setting themselves up for failure, knowing that, yes, with Justin Herbert, you always have a chance, but it's about giving him a better chance and not having all of the decks stacked against him as soon as he steps on the field when that day comes. So I think, yes, they could win a playoff game, but I do think it matters a lot who it is. Like, if you're putting this team up against, like who are they going to beat? Because, if they got the Broncos won the AFC West and they got matched up with the Broncos in the first round, I could see that, right?
Yeah.
Who else? The Steelers are technically in the playoffs right now. I think the Ravens are going to catch them and end up winning that division, which is crazy from where they started, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see them beating them, right? Like, I could see, we just saw it. So it doesn't seem super hard to believe. Patriots with, Drake May's first time there, I think they'd have a chance in that one, even though they've obviously beat the Bills. Won a big game this week as well against the Buccaneers. But I think it's just very dependent on that, because who else are you going to beat? Like, I'm not going to say they beat the Colts. The Bills, obviously, tough matchup. The Chiefs, at full strength, would be a very tough matchup as well. It's hard to say. Could they do it? Yes, but the whole point is, like, do they have a great chance with the offensive line that they're going to have? No, it's going to be a huge disadvantage pretty much no matter what, knowing who they're not going to have back. Doesn't mean they can't win or it's impossible, but it's going to be very, very tough, because that's exactly what gave them an early exit last year.
Yeah, and they got to run the ball a whole lot better too, Daniel. I mean, that's the other big thing that they had is they had no rushing yards at all, and so that added even more pressure on Justin Herbert to have to carry everything on his shoulders, him and Ladd McConkey, obviously, because they didn't get anything going on the ground. Hopefully, you feel like with the addition of Omarion Hampton and how Kimani Vidal is running the football, that you will have at least a improved running game, because it's so important, especially in the playoffs, to be able to move the ball on the ground.
Yeah, and you're going to find some really good run defenses when you get there. And I think the hard thing is just having the double negative of not being able to protect and also not being able to run the football. So I think this kind of will answer some of those as well here from Hunter Palermo on Twitter, who says, buy or sell, Greg Roman deserves a lot more credit for what he's working with up front. I think I'm going to buy it, like, to a certain extent. I mean, I think, it depends on what you think of Greg Roman, and obviously we haven't had a super high opinion of him. So I don't know if it's like a huge bar to have to leap over to say that he's kind of been underrated to a certain extent. But obviously I'm not in love with Greg Roman as an offensive coordinator, but I do think maybe he deserves a little credit, for obviously the patchwork line that he has to work with.
I mean, hey, you're at a huge disadvantage, as we just talked about, being without both of your top tackles. I mean, go around the league and say, hey, we're going to take away both of your best offensive linemen and go ahead and figure it out. I mean, that's a huge, huge problem to have to fix. And obviously that puts a lot more emphasis on the game plan, on the protection plan, making sure that your tight ends are in the right spot to be able to help and chip, and your running backs are fully committed in pass protection, protecting the quarterback, doing everything that they can, obviously incorporating the quick passing game as he did very effectively, trying to get the ball out of Justin Herbert's hands, get it in the hands of playmakers like Quentin Johnston, who was able to make a couple of people look really, really bad with a stiff arm and a really nice juke. Like, that's when he's at his best, right? And so that's all coming from the offensive coordinator, trying to call that, trying to, do what he can with what he has. And I feel like right now you have to feel confident that, Greg Roman's doing everything he can. He's getting the results. The Chargers are sitting here 10 games into the season at 7-3.
Sure, right. Of course. Obviously offense isn't a win-loss stat, but I think they're 14th in offense, right? So I think the hard thing to parse is you have Justin Herbert. You should be top 15, 16 in offense pretty much no matter what. And I think that's what always makes a conversation like this hard is like, how much credit are we giving Greg Roman? How much credit should be going to Justin Herbert for literally defying the odds multiple times with bad offenses to go win at least two games that they shouldn't have already this season, right? So it's hard to know how much credit, because even with them winning, even with, what's been happening offensively, it's not as if Justin Herbert's getting hit much less. He's still getting pressured, and he's still getting hit more than anyone else in the league. So what he's doing offensively hasn't protected Justin Herbert to that extent. They're trying to, but he's still getting hit and pressured more than anyone in the league. So I think the one thing I think you can definitively give Greg Roman credit for is the improvements in the running game, because the Chargers running game has been so much better this year, and they've been missing Najee Harris for almost the entire season, Omarion Hampton for a huge chunk, at least a third of the season, and you've been Kimani Vidal on your way to a top 10 rushing attack, because that's what the Chargers are this year. They're 10th in rushing yards per game. They've had 106 yards or more in seven of their last 8 games, and during that span, they're averaging 133 rushing yards. Over the last 3 games, they're averaging 151 rushing yards, and Omarion Hampton has missed every one of those games. So, I don't love Greg Roman for sure. I do think it's nice. It does feel like he has evolved a little bit, but he's also done it against, the 30th, 18th, 22nd, and 24th ranked defenses over the Chargers' last 4 wins. So still have to prove it a little bit more, but I do think, hey, this rushing attack, it's not fluky. We hoped he could get it back to a top 10 rushing attack, and even with a total mash unit at the running back position, they've still been able to somehow do that 10 games in, be a top 10 rushing attack. So that is encouraging. He definitely deserves probably more credit than he's getting, but I think a lot of it is also Justin Herbert, because a lot of the reason those rushing numbers are there, it's because Justin Herbert's been like the best rushing quarterback in the NFL so far this season. So we still have more to get into, including if this defense can be the equalizer that makes you, confident the Chargers can contend with the AFC's best, and more on today's Locked On Chargers podcast.
Today's show is brought to you by our friends over there at Peloton. Look, folks, it's time to break through the busiest time of the year with a brand new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus that's powered by Peloton IQ. It's Peloton's most elevated technology and equipment yet that gives you real-time guidance, and it gives you endless ways to move, whether you want to work out by yourself or if you want to work out with your favorite instructor, like my personal favorite, Alex Toussaint. He always gets me fired up to tackle the day. And the thing I like about Peloton, it helps me achieve more in less times. They have features that help you plan, stay motivated, track your progress, and Peloton IQ also provides personalized workout plans and recommendations. That's something that I use right now during the busiest time of the year covering the NFL. They plan my workouts for me based on my mood, my vibe, and also my favorite instructors. So make sure you check it out and use it, because it also helps you correct your form in real time, and it maximizes your reps. It counts your reps so that you can do it smarter, safer, and more efficient. Let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
David, we still have much more to get into on this Buy or Sell Tuesday, getting into the biggest Charger storylines and overreactions. But thank you to all the everydayers who make shows like this possible with your guys' contributions. And thank you for helping make us the #1 ranked sports podcast network. But let's get to the defensive side of things here, David. And I think Athir has a good buy or sell here. He's definitely feeling himself. He definitely is a big believer in the Chargers defense. We'll see what he has for us.
Dan, David, buy or sell Tuesday, an overreaction. Chargers defense is on the heater right now. AFC contender should feel this defense. I'm buying it. What is your thought? Love you.
I mean, I think the buy or sell here is really this. As the Chargers defense, buy or sell the Chargers defense has done enough to show that they can contend with the other big dogs in the AFC. And I would buy it to a certain extent that they would be afraid, because it looks like the Chargers aren't going to nosedive this season. I think with the injuries the Chargers have had on the offensive line, there was a chance this thing could have spiraled, right? And that's one less ridiculously good quarterback for the rest of the teams in the AFC to have to be fearful of. They're still right in it, and their defense is a big reason why. So the defense won the Chargers this game last week, and that was kind of our big question was, can this defense be the biggest reason the Chargers win these games, pick up the offense when it's lacking a little bit. And I think that we saw that. Now, I still have to see it against better offenses than the ones that we've seen. They haven't faced any real high-powered offense in the last 5 weeks outside of the Colts, and they got 38 dropped on their head. So, yes, I think it keeps the Chargers in it, and it means they're going to be a playoff threat to the end, but I still need to see a little bit more.
Yeah, completely understandable. I think they've held their own against the rushing department. I think they're 13th in rushing yards allowed. But where they've really shined is in their pass defense. They are 5th in passing yards allowed, and they've been really good over the last few games. It's allowed an average of just 132 passing yards per game, and opponents have a 55.4% completion percentage and a 61.1 QB rating against the Chargers over the last 3 games. So the Chargers defense absolutely is heating up, and if they continue to marry the pass rush with the pass coverage, they're going to be really, really good. I think they have some guys that are just extremely good football players. And one thing I've really noticed lately in particular is they're playing a lot more physical on defense. They're tackling in open space, making excellent tackles. If they continue to play in this form, then absolutely this is a defense that other teams around the league should be wary of.
Yeah, and I agree to your point for the most part. I think my trust issues with this defense is every time you've gone up against a great offense, you've gotten carved up, and we haven't had a chance to see them remedy that yet. This was the best defense the best offense that they played during this 4-game stretch, and it's the 15th best scoring offense in the league, right? Like, that is not a top tier, really good juggernaut type of offense. You can only play the teams ahead of you. This was their most impressive defensive performance, hands down, and they get big credit for that. I need to see them slow down a top offense to have the full faith that they can do that once they get to the playoffs. Now, their defense is good enough that it's going to keep them competitive in these games and give them a chance to win against these teams in these kind of, games against not terrible teams like the Jaguars, like the Cowboys who have a good offense, like the Texans who are definitely going to limit the Chargers offense somewhat, right? That's where this defense has to shine. I think they can do that. Can they slow down the top offenses in the NFL? Not ready to buy that yet because I haven't seen it, and I have to see it to believe it to a certain extent, because it was 38 against the Colts. It was 40 dropped on them last year against the Buccaneers. It was the Ravens getting whatever they wanted. The Colts hanging up 35 plus on them. They just haven't passed those tests when they've been, when they've had that opportunity. Why that is, I think there's a lot of reasons. But let's get to this one from John Clark, because I think it could be part of it too. He says, buy or sell that a consistent pass rush is actually the key aspect in determining if the Bolts make the playoffs and will be the biggest factor in how far the team can go once they do. David, you buying or selling that?
Yeah, I don't know about the biggest aspect, but it is incredibly important to how they win football games defensively, no question. I think you look at the last 5 games, 4 of those being victories, they have notched multiple sacks in those games. And the one game where they didn't get more than one, the Indianapolis Colts game where they got boat raced. They got absolutely no pressure on Daniel Jones, and he did whatever he wanted. They ran whenever they wanted. They threw whenever they wanted. So it is very important to the success of this defense to marry the pass rush with the pass coverage. Defense's best friend, secondary's best friend, is a pass rush that can terrorize opposing quarterbacks. And with the addition of Odafe Owe and with Justin Herbert causing pressure on the interior, along with Khalil Mack, Tuli Peloton having a fantastic year, those guys are big, big reasons why this Chargers defense has been as good as they have been lately.
Yeah, and I think it's more about what they can do, right, against these good teams. And I do think that on defense, it's the most important thing. The offensive line is still going to be the biggest thing that hangs over this team's head. But their defense and the pass rush that they're able to generate is going to determine how well they do. And, I mean, over the last 3 games, they've averaged more than 20 pressures per game on the defense. So that has been a huge reason for the Chargers' 3-game winning streak. We saw them affect Aaron Rodgers. We saw them affect Carson Wentz, Cam Ward. I know the names I'm saying as I'm saying them. It's not going to really scare anyone from that aspect. But like, the one thing it really helps you do, and the thing we saw in this last game, is generate those takeaways. If the Chargers are going to win and win in the playoffs, it's hard for me to imagine they do that without being really good at taking the football away, not only to stop other offenses, but to help their own flawed offense put points on the board like we saw in this last game where the Chargers got multiple scores off of the turnovers that defense was able to generate. And it makes the defensive backs better. It makes things tougher for the opposing offense. The pass rush now is going to be kind of what carries this defense, and they'll go as far as that pass rush can take them. But let's get to this last one here from Omar Aguilar really quickly, because this is an important part of that pass rush. Buy or sell, DaShawn Hand is one of our most underrated players. Our defense looks way different and better as we just got him back. David, buy or sell?
Anytime you can add anybody who can provide some pass rush ability is going to be a help to your defense, especially on the interior. And for DaShawn Hand, 4 of the 6 games he's played, he's notched multiple pressures on the interior, including 4 against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So yeah, I think what you're gonna get from the outside. Anytime you can get any kind of pass rush from the interior, it's a bonus.
100%. And I think especially with what you have on the outside now, right, to have a guy to kind of muck things up in the middle, and it's been by committee, but he's been the most consistent guy there, because not only did he have 4 pressures, which led the team for the Chargers, not just the interior guys, but he's been able to do that. And to your point, 4 out of 6 games with multiple pressures. One of those games he only played 4 snaps. So really, 4 out of the 5 games he's had multiple pressures, and in every game he's had a pressure that he's played in all 5 games where he's been healthy. So another interior defensive lineman seemingly with a career resurgence under this defensive coaching staff and under Mike Elston specifically. How are the Chargers going to replace Poona Ford? They couldn't really, but they've done a pretty good job by committee doing the best they could on, really bargain contracts. So I love DaShawn Hand. I think you instantly saw what he brought back to the table in his return from injured reserve after missing, the last 4 games. Probably someone we should have been talking about as someone most important kind of to come back, because he was that much of a difference maker. And I'm really, really excited for this defense, and having him back and healthy is one of the biggest reasons why. But there's a bunch of reasons, right? Like Nico Reed, like RJ Mickens, the first-year safety with 2 picks, all of a sudden leading this team are up there, right? We'll get more into those guys tomorrow and more into if the Chargers can go make the playoffs and all of that, but that's going to wrap things up for today's show. If you didn't get on today's show, we will be lending ourselves to the fans again tomorrow for our Chargers mailbag. So make sure you guys hit us up at Locked On LAC on Twitter, at Locked On Chargers on Instagram, and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page, where you guys can get your questions in for tomorrow. You can also call into the voicemail line like Athir at 323-524-7924 and leave your 30-second Chargers voicemail there. David, I know tomorrow is a very important day as we're recording this. Well, it's today already. I definitely want to let you have the floor for this one.
Yeah, 11th of November is a big day for a multitude of reasons. One, it is my son's birthday. Happy birthday, Julian. Happy 14th birthday. But also because it's Veterans Day. And as an Army veteran, it is, and it was, my absolute honor and pleasure to serve my country, as I know it was for all of the other men and women that ever put on a uniform to go out there and fight and sacrifice for the freedoms that we get to enjoy as Americans. So to every single person who has ever put a uniform on, thank you for your service.
Absolutely. I echo that sentiment. I mean, thank you for your service. It cannot be repaid for what you've put on the line for this country and the freedoms you've allowed us to have. So it's something that, we should be very present of our veterans every single day, and we're not enough. But I think today is a very good reminder of those who, have given what they have for this country and taken on the ultimate risk, one of the scariest decisions you can ever make, and to willingly go do that for this country, I think is just one of the coolest things in the damn world. Honestly, I do. So thank you for your service, everyone out there. David, thank you for your service specifically. Thank you guys for listening to today's show. To make sure you don't miss the next one, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you guys get your podcasts from. And we'll be back with you guys tomorrow with our Chargers mailbag, talking playoffs, talking RJ Mickens. But until then, guys, take it easy and go Bolts.